Good morning, everyone. We've finally started our Christmas baking season. So today we're going to start with a little bit of candy making. This is one of my favorite recipes. This is going to be peanut brittle. Some helpful hints before you jump straight into cooking this recipe is to have everything laid out and pre-measured and ready to go. Because once you start cooking this syrup mixture, you really cannot stop stirring it because it will burn very quickly, and once it has burnt, there's really no saving it. So get your cookie sheet. You'll see mine in the background. You're going to take softened butter and just a silicone spatula or your hand, whichever. Smear that butter all over the bottom of that cookie sheet really well. Have it ready to go. You're going to pre-measure the peanuts that are going to go in at the end, and it's 2 cups of peanuts. And then you're going to have in another little bowl pre-measured 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1.5 teaspoons of salt that go in at the very end. And you really want to have those ready because once this is done cooking, you got to throw everything in real quick and then hurry up and stir it. You don't want to be digging around for measuring cups and ingredients. So the base of our syrup, you'll see me pouring into this pan right there, 2 cups of sugar. Before that, I put in 3/4 of a cup of hot water. There is my pre-measured baking soda and salt. And then my peanuts that are ready to go. So the syrup part. 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup, 3/4 of a cup hot water, and 2 cups of sugar in this saucepan. So you're going to stir that together and turn your burner just to medium heat. And how quickly this cooks depends on your pans and on your stove. I have, these are ceramic pans, ceramic lined pans, I believe. They heat really quickly. You're going to also need, you'll see a candy thermometer hanging on my saucepan here. That's really important because this really needs to be cooked to temperature. So you're going to continuously stir this syrup mixture until it reaches 260 degrees Fahrenheit on your candy thermometer. This will tire your arms out, and this is another reason why you want to have your ingredients pre-measured. So at this point here, I've reached about 225 degrees, and I will lean you over the pan and you'll see this mixture starts out perfectly clear. Here it's starting to get a little bit of a goldish or yellow tone. Sorry, steamed up my camera there. But this is what will start to happen, and you will feel it while you're stirring start to thicken. Another good thing to have on hand is a regular spoon. Here I'm using a whisk to stir. Once you get those peanuts in, your whisk is not going to be strong enough to swish them around in your pan. So I end up having a wooden spoon. You could use plastic as well. So I've been stirring probably about 15 to 20 minutes at this point. We're still heating up. It's starting to bubble. Bringing you in so you guys can see. We're getting close. I think right here I'm at about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. We got to get it to 260 before we throw those peanuts in. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit more. And again, continuously stirring. One thing I would say is if you have children in the kitchen, I would not recommend letting small kids help with this because this hot syrup is extremely dangerous. If it gets spilled on your skin, it will burn very badly. And just be very aware of your surroundings when you're moving with this pan and when you're stirring it. So we have reached 260 Fahrenheit on the candy thermometer. I'm going to stir in my peanuts while continuing to stir. And here you'll see my whisk start to bend a little bit. So I'm going to swap that out for my wooden spoon. Again, continuing to stir as I go. You do not want to let that syrup burn onto the bottom of your pan. And you'll be able to tell if it's starting to burn because where your syrup is a light clear or a very light yellowish color, you'll start to see little flecks of brown come up in that syrup if it has gotten too hot on the bottom. So again, we're going to continue to stir. Now it's going to be about another probably 10 minutes or so of cooking and stirring continuously. We got to make it to 290 degrees Fahrenheit on this thermometer now. And brittle you can make with any nut. It doesn't have to be peanuts. If you prefer cashews or even pecans or walnuts, you can use those also. Peanut brittle is just kind of the go-to. It's the original recipe. But you would just use this same syrup recipe and then just throw in the different nuts. And I did make a version of this that was a little bit lower sugar, where I used half sugar and half Splenda in it, and it turned out fine. The only thing is it will cook faster than the regular recipe will, and when you pour it onto your pan, it's not going to spread quite as thin as your regular will, so you'll have to bust it into smaller pieces once it's finished. So here you can see, continuing to stir. We're getting there. We're getting close. We're in the home stretch now. And the final step on this is going to be throwing in that baking soda and salt. And another thing is that this has to be chilled immediately. You cannot leave it just sit out on your counter. It won't set like it's supposed to. It's got to go straight into a refrigerator, or if you've got a garage like I do that's, enclosed, but it's not heated, it's nice and cold out there, go and sit it in your garage. So here we have reached our 290 degree mark. So I'm doing my last couple of stirs. You'll pull your candy thermometer out, set it off to the side. You're going to turn the heat off on that burner and take your brittle off of the burner. Don't let it continue to cook. There goes my baking soda and salt mixture right there. And stir, you'll see it start to get white and foamy. You want to make sure that that is completely mixed in. Don't leave anything stuck to the bottom or sides of your pan. And it goes straight onto that greased cookie sheet that's sitting there. If you have this cooking sheet sitting on your countertop, I would advise having a couple of dish towels or maybe some pot holders underneath it, because this mixture is super hot and it might damage your counter to pour it straight on there while it's sitting there. I have mine on the stovetop, so it's fine, but that's something to be aware of whenever you get ready to pour this into your cookie sheet. And you're going to spread this as thin as you can possibly get it. You'll see little holes start to come up whenever you're spreading this. Don't worry about it, because that syrup will run back into itself and it will fill in those gaps. You want to try to get it to every corner of your cookie sheet. And it will start to harden immediately whenever it's poured. You'll see right there as I'm starting to scrape it off the spoon, is really clinging to that pan, so it's already starting to solidify. And again, this pan will also be hot. Whenever you go to pick it up, probably have some pot holders or a rag or something to help with your fingertips, because the pan itself will get really hot once this is poured in. But this is what you'll have once you've spread it out. Nice and shiny. You want it nice and thin. Just whatever you do, do not touch that mixture. So then you'll be left with this pan. This is just a quick tip for cleanup. This can be really intimidating because this brittle mixture is very, very hard in your pan. The best way to deal with this, to clean up your pan, run the water in your sink as hot as it will go, or you could even put a tea kettle or something on the stove and boil some water. Put you a little bit of dish soap in this pan, and everything that was used in it, your whisk, your spoon, your candy thermometer, sit them all in this pan. Once that water has gotten as hot as it possibly can, you're going to fill that pan all the way to the top and let that just sit in the sink for 10 or 15 minutes with that super hot water in it. It will dissolve all of that brittle mixture, and all you got to do is take a sponge or a rag and just wipe around everything and on the edges of your pan, and you won't have anything stuck on there. There won't be any hard scrubbing or anything. Just let that water do its job and dissolve it. So here, it's been sitting in my garage for about an hour or so. It is cold to the touch. My pan is nice and cold. I'm using a pastry scraper. You don't have to have one of these. You could just take a little butter knife or even just the tips of your fingers and get up underneath this. And you're just going to pull it up and break it into pieces. And you don't have to hit this very hard. You're not trying to murder the peanut brittle. Just light taps will do just fine to break this apart, especially if you've spread it nice and thin. Again, you could do that either with a butter knife, or you could just pick it up with your hands and just snap it into little pieces. Works just as well. And the size of the pieces is just dependent on your personal preference. You can make them as big or as small as you like. Whenever you're going to put this into a Christmas tin, put a layer of waxed paper in between. So a layer of waxed paper on the bottom, and then a layer of peanut brittle, and then again layer waxed paper, and then another layer of peanut brittle, if that's how you're packaging this. And this does not need to be refrigerated. It can be just left out on your counter, covered in a tin or in a little, maybe like a Rubbermaid storage container. And that is it. Your peanut brittle is finished. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe to our channel for more recipes. I have more candy and lots of baking and cookies and everything coming up for Christmas. And thank you so much for watching. If you have a friend that's into cooking or baking, or even if you just want new recipes, if you already know how to cook and you're just looking for something new to try, please check out some of our other videos for that as well. And I hope you guys enjoy the holidays. Have a wonderful Christmas. And hopefully eat lots and lots of delicious sweets.